I'm going to use the microphone.
Okay.
All right.
You can't hear me, let me know.
I have to tell you, this is the first time I've ever done an interview.
Really? This is the first time I've ever done an interview in Maine.
So the first time that first of all, Mark and I initially, when we got the 7K membership, we were looking for bullion.
Okay.
Shared story by most people, right? And then we quickly became enthused with the coins.
Numismatic collectors.
And then it was in May of 2021, we went out to Utah, Salt Lake City for the event. It was May, right?
Yep. It was spring, yeah.
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 And I come down into the lobby, and Mark was more into the coins at this point, and he had brought coins, your coins, with us. And I come down in the lobby, and there was literally a line wrapped around almost the entire hotel, waiting to meet you. And I was like, wow, this guy is a
That was
big...
a first, by the way. That was a first.
I knew then you were a big deal. And we've since, obviously, we just think the world of you. So I would love for you to share. I've been lucky enough to hear you a couple times now, but I know there are people in here who don't know your story. So I wanted to kind of start with, how did you get here? How did you first, I mean, people don't grow up to say, I want to be a coin designer, or do
I didn't
they?
start that way. That didn't develop till much later in life, actually. You know, I've worked for all the three major grading services, and for over 35 years. Since the age of 19, that's what I've done. That's all I've ever done. And what I developed those jobs into was not just being a numismatic coin grading expert, but I wanted to get into the business development, meaning grading services don't survive unless there's coins to grade. Okay, so if you see any of the labels in the let's just say the NGC holders as an example, because I've worked both at ANAX, PCGS, and NGC. It all started with the development of the actual label itself. You know, like when you see the state animal series. Okay, before 1998, there wouldn't have been a label like that. And it was a visual thing that I wanted to create with different coin holders, visual aids, because the internet, you know, I was involved in taking a company public in the late 1990s, which is now the world's largest collectibles company. It was publicly traded, now it's sold, and it's nearly a $5 billion company. Grading baseball cards, grading coins. But before 1998, there was no visual aid for people when they just looked at the coin when it was in those certified holders. And I think if any of you have ever had a NGC coin in your hand or a PCGS coin in your hand, you know what I mean by that colored label at the top. And that might be any color. It might be just a solid red, a blue, a green, a red, or a design of an animal even, or a signature that hadn't been created since 1998. So going back to those late 90s, the internet had been turned on about 1995. 96, 97, I was starting to get it. You know, it was one of those, like, what is this thing? You know, I thought it was more of like a party line than anything else. If you were from the 50s or 60s, you know what I mean by a party line. Pick up a phone and you can talk to 6, 8 people at the same time. Kind of, that's how I visualized it. Didn't know how you would find anybody else. There wasn't a yellow pages for everybody's email. So you really had to be able to communicate with people closely to get the first emails. Anyway, I saw a visual. I said there's these auctions. I was doing business, nearly sold the company to eBay back in 1999. Was doing things with the internet that I said, if people are gonna be on the internet on a daily basis, they wanna look at something great and exciting. No different than when you go to the grocery store and you see packaging on the shelf, what item do you pick for? You know, it might be that beautiful Special K box, it might not be the Cheerios box, but it's all, we're big visual people as humans. And I saw that little area at the top of that coin holder as my window or my billboard. I said, people looking at coins on television, people looking at coins on the internet want something in that square. That's where that started. And that's where the business development side came in my work, away from sitting in a dark room with a dozen guys grading 25, 30,000, 40,000 rare coins a month. I had to do more. Okay, and that was more was that. And it evolved all the grading services from doing a certain amount of coins a month to doing exponentially tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of coins a month. I've created over $3 billion in certification business just in the last 20 years between 2 grading services with the products that I've developed. And I believed in it from the 1990s. That's where it was after coin grading. From there, if I fast forward ahead with all the different kinds of packaging programs I did, I found this company online called 7K Metals. Had no idea what it was. Saw this list of board of directors. I said, it's very rare for me to not know somebody who's in the industry.
Yeah.
They weren't from this industry. Kind of read a little bit about them. I called them up and I said who I was. From what I learned later, they were like, we got Miles Standish from the grading service calling us. What's this? You know, they knew me, I didn't know them. Okay. I said, I'm coming out to see you. You're coming to Idaho Falls? You know, it's not just a direct flight from Austin, Texas to Idaho Falls. I said, yeah, I want to know what you're doing. I smell something here and I've got a good sniffer for business opportunities and I'm going to go make a relationship. That's all it was. I didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't know who I was going to walk into. Didn't know if it would be friendly fire or a battle zone. Who knew? And it was probably one of the smarter life decision, relationship decisions. You know, it's in the top 10 of people I've met that I've introduced myself to on a cold calling basis, if you know what I mean. So that's how it started with 7K.
Wow. Well, we are grateful you made that call.
Yeah, and the next thing they did was they read my books and they saw this page in the book, which by the way I got a different copy to get you. That's we'll talk later about it. Anyway, there's a tip-in page in all my books. You know, I've written 2 best-selling books. One sold over 100,000 copies. The other one sold 40,000 copies. Profits from that books go back to that lady back there, because that's what I decided to do when I wrote the books, and all the profits would go to the foundation. 7K saw this, and they decided that they wanted to adopt the Standish Foundation for Children and do something every year for it. And between them and the membership, they've been fantastic. So it's been something else. It's been quite a ride. You know, as far as, just stop me anytime. You know, as far as coin design is concerned, I sat on an idea for 7 years. When I say sat on it, I got rejected first. You know, Andrea and I went to the Perth Mint, Australia. I had an idea, I wanted to design a coin. You know, the prominent thing about designing a coin is you get your initials on it. You know, it's kind of, you know, in my world, that's a big deal. And that's what I wanted to accomplish with the first design I ever did was the Statue of Liberty coins. And I think some of you, if you've been involved in 7K any period of time, you know the series. But it was in my memory, in my thought process for over about 7 years before it got up to the plate to become a design. And with 7K's help, that happened. So, you know, I made the call. They didn't. I said I want to be exclusive designer for you, and that's what I've done. That's what I'll continue to do.
Awesome. You've actually answered several of my questions already.
Lunch. They said free lunch.
So let me ask you. Obviously, you saw something in 7K.
Absolutely.
What is it that you saw in 7K, and if you were to, you know, with your knowledge and your background, what do you see for the future of 7K?
Well, you know, initially what I saw was the quality of the people. I've been around a lot of people in nearly 40 years in the coin industry. I had a CEO once tell me, he says, Miles, he says, you deal with a lot of crooks, don't you? And this is a guy that used to be in Ronald Reagan's cabinet. Okay, and I said, Roger, I said, no, I said, a lot more pirates than crooks. You know? And I just, you know, it's one of those feelings when you get around people, and when I went out to the headquarters, you know, I met most of the board, if not all of the board, I believe. And, you know, it's just one of those things, you know it.
Yeah.
And it was only a couple of days of a little bit of golf, a little bit of meetings, a little bit of fishing. You know, we were dancing, having casual time together, not like what I've experienced before so much. And that's what really opened the door. You know, the rest is really what you see. They're an incredible bunch of people. I choose to be affiliated with them. I don't need to. I choose to because I like them and I like what they're doing, and I like the culture of the membership. The membership, and I'll just share this with you. You know, I've been going to trade shows and around coin collectors all my life. I've never met as diverse a crowd of people as I've met in going to Salt Lake City. Just a little, 500 people, 1,000 people? I've never seen so much diversity, ever in 40 years. So it's for everybody. My past history in coin collecting never felt like it was for everybody. It's a real guy-oriented thing. 7K makes it so it's open for everybody, and I love that. And I think that's fantastic. So.
Love that. I love that too. So you brought up Reagan. I noticed that in your book, his son Michael Reagan wrote the foreword. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that relationship?
You know, Michael was a cold call. Ronald Reagan was the first president I ever voted for, second term. And I decided that when John Mercanti and I, John who designed the American Silver Eagle, we're going to do a book co-authored together, I said there's only one person I want to get to write the foreword, and that's Michael Reagan, who's Ronald Reagan's adopted son. But he's been a fantastic friend for, a dozen years. Andrew and I were leaving town coming up here, he just got back from a trip to Paris with his kids, and I've got him involved in the business too since then. But it was a complete cold call. I got a cell number for him, and he was crossing over the Golden Gate Bridge one day, and I said, "This is Miles Standish calling," and it was he thought that was a joke. And he still has fun with that. But, it's one of those unusual friendships made because of a desire I had because of his father, but we really made good friends out of it. So it's been a fantastic friendship.
Well, super inspiring, because in order for us to grow our business, we have to make those cold calls sometimes, so.
Yeah, the phone has never weighed 50 pounds to me. A lot of people get intimidated by picking up the phone because, it just weighs so much to call that person up. It's never, I've been introducing myself since I was 5 years old to adults. So that problem has never been a problem for me. I think I was born with it. I don't know how you develop it before you're 5. I mean, I know before that you were 4, but the cold call to anybody has never been fearful to me. And I've worked with 2 former presidents, and it was because I just called up their chief of staff, and you say you want to do something, and then you come through, and ultimately it's a world. I call it dominoes. Ultimately it's a world of if you refer to this person, they'll check with each other.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing. It's kind of like Gerald Ford, when I told him I wanted to do something with H.W. Bush, Gerald Ford called him up and said, work with Miles, he's a good guy. It's that crazy, but it's that simple. But you can't let it weigh 50 pounds. You have to make the call. And the worst thing that can happen is nothing happened. But nothing was going to happen if you didn't pick up the call.
Yeah.
The phone, excuse me. So, anyway.
Awesome.
I get passionate about the things I believe in. Just remember that with me.
Well, our favorite coins, wherever Mark is, are definitely our series that have MS, your signature on them.
Yeah.
So and I know it's probably hard to choose, but which series probably means the most to you, or which series do you love the story that inspired you?
Well, I know the series that probably got people the most mad at me. I don't know if you know, but there's a big contingency of Hawaiians that are in 7K.
Yeah.
And when, I met them before they even know the USS Arizona series was going to come out. And I know I watched the day that I was at 7K actually visiting in Idaho Falls, and they put the 5-ounce coins up, and of course, 1,100 coins evaporated in 22 seconds. And I'm thinking I'll never be able to go back to Hawaii again, because I know some of them got shut out. But that's the series I think people probably get the most upset with me, because they didn't get that coin. I have to tell you, because I love American history so much, and it wasn't because I got that in public schools, because public schools only taught me a skim across the ice of American history. But a multiple generation back, I'm related to Benjamin Franklin on his wife's side. So in our family, you know, we always talked about that, you know, so I think passionately, you know, Benjamin Franklin was probably one of the greatest first Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I always thought he wasn't anything compared to Washington or Lincoln or Jefferson, some of the other great presidents. I actually think he accomplished more than all of them combined. I'm not saying that those guys didn't accomplish big things,
Right.
you know, some to save our country, some to save the people of our country. But, you know, when you stack it up, Benjamin Franklin must have been some cool guy that everybody wanted to hang out with all of his life, and he must have had amazing wisdom, because he was never elected as a public official. He was appointed to be a postmaster and a ambassador to France, but he was never voted into anything. But they have him on all the major documents. I mean, so they're calling him. They ain't calling him because he's required. They're calling him because, hey, go get Ben. He must have had some wisdom you had to have been in the room to know it. So for me, that's pretty special to me. You know, hey, everybody always gives me great compliments for different things, Statue of Liberty, White House series. But these are things I love. Either I've been there, or I have a tie to it, or I have a real personal feeling about it. Those are what come out in my design work. And you know, there's a lot of great things planned. It's going to evolve quite a bit. You know, you're going to see, hopefully 2 years, 5 years out, you know, as this whole 7K family grows, it's going to become a very global type work on my part. You talk about scared to death. You know, no, really, because you have to appeal to, you know, as a room, if you were born in this country, it's an easier group for me to appeal to. But when you have to appeal to Asia and, you know, Middle East and Europe, South America, Central America, it's a challenge. But, you know, lately I felt like I've got some things going in my head that it's not as fearful, but I'm going to do it. So.
Well, I have to agree. I love the Ben Franklin series, and I knew you were a direct descendant of Miles Standish, but I didn't
Right.
realize that was the family that married
Just on his wife's side.
Very cool.
He wasn't too close to his wife, so I'm really distant. He went to Paris, left her to die in the States. He wasn't probably the greatest family man at that time. But what he got done was fabulous. And she begged him to come home.
So your storytelling is amazing, and the fact that you do it through these beautiful coins. And I will tell you, as a former teacher, the videos that come out that tell the story are absolutely amazing.
Nobody does it better than what 7K does to add on to coins, and nobody's ever done it before. That's the key part. Nobody's done it before, the things that you're watching when a coin comes out and the cards that come out with it. You can scan your phone and you can go to a YouTube video that tells, you know, the first one was the White House series. Oh my God, I remember seeing that previewed to me when it came out. I go, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this in all my years. And it's what's needed, because visuals sell people. Back to my story about that little square window at the top of the holder, visuals sell people. And of course, video, you know, it's lock and load.
I have to tell you, every time we do a presentation where we're sharing the membership, we carve out time to share one of your coins through the video. And you're absolutely right. You can see something happen in that moment where
Well, you don't need this either. You can hand it to somebody, they can put it on their phone, takes them to YouTube, and boom, it's up.
Absolutely.
It's a closer.
So, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but can you give us a little bit of a preview as to maybe some projects?
Oh boy.
Dude, that was
The most commonly asked question, okay?
Do it with higher coins.
What's coming next?
Yeah, I had somebody call me the other day, says, they told me, but I've been sworn to secrecy. I said, well, why are you calling me then? You just want to tell me you know? Of course, I think they're baiting me, that they don't know anything. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the Gettysburg series, right, sure. No, we're not doing that.
So you can't tell us anything.
I really can't, I mean.
Not even
it's-
one little
You know,
thing.
I think you can follow the roadmap, you know, and if it isn't great, I'm not interested. I think if it's got a fabulous story, might be something I'm tied to, is really important to me. But, you know, you you can look across the stone mountains of the country and the things that you've seen engraved that are really, and I didn't say anything about Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's nothing Stone Mountain, Georgia. But I like the real leaders that really did stuff. And they came from nothing. It's not like they were born with silver spoons in their mouth. They came from my world of America that we just tried. We just got out there and tried. I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I didn't have a chance, but I made my chance. I dropped out of college early on, thought I should regret it, but I've never looked back since. It just worked out that way. But it's because I never gave up. Andrea will tell me, oh no, he's got another idea,
Super inspiring. So you've obviously traveled many places and met a lot of people, a lot of famous people.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you say was the most interesting, or is there a story you'd love to share?
Well, I've met a lot of tremendous famous people. I think somebody in the back of the room. Didn't you ask me that question in Mexico? Was
Yes,
that?
I did.
Did I say Tony Curtis?
Yes, Tony Curtis, Michael Reagan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually 1981, I believe it was 1981 or 82. My parents took me to Washington, D.C., and it was just months before Anwar Sadat was killed that I got to say hello to him. And if you do a little history later on that, Anwar Sadat was pretty significant at the time, but he was, the president of Egypt. I'm not sure if that was his actual time, but he was assassinated within months before that. We were there like in July. That was always significant to me. My time with Gerald Ford was fun. Tony Curtis was crazy fun. I'm glad I didn't hang around with him too long. This is before I met Andrea. He was a wild man, but he was a coin collector. And it was the most crazy coin collector I ever met, because here I am, I'm like 21 years old, and I'm interviewing him. And because he's a coin collector, I was gonna write a story at the time about famous people that collected coins. And he's telling me this story, between his phone ringing and different girls showing up at his bungalow in Beverly Hills throughout like a 5-hour time period while I was there. It was just like, what is going on with this guy? Anyway, and he was a famous artist too. But he said, he says, Miles, he says, I look at these gold coins, and it was like, I see the lines of history that speak to me through these gold coins. It was deep. But for a 21-year-old, I didn't grasp it as much as I grasp it today. But pretty interesting. But probably because I like the political side of it, sitting with Gerald Ford in his late 80s at his home in both Colorado and Palm Desert. Those were pretty intimate conversation times. When a president looks at you and he says, Miles, is there anything you'd like to ask me that nobody would get to ask me? And I'm thinking, oh God, there's 100 things today I'd ask you. But it was those kind of conversations that were real. And, I've had a lot of fun that way.
You are very lucky, and obviously they were lucky.
I'm very grateful.
Well, you can tell that. And you're really funny too. And if you're not friends with Miles on Facebook, he is...
Did Andrea walk out when I got a compliment on my jokes?
So funny. Okay, so let's go to the coins a little bit. For somebody who's in here right now and maybe they're new or they haven't really dug into their membership, why...
Who's from Maine here? I got to get an idea of that. What a beautiful state.
It is.
Oh my God, we left Texas, it was 105 for like the last 90 days. Literally. I mean, we've had a record 100+ degree days this summer. And it was just like, this 68 to 75 reprieve we've had. And what a gorgeous scenery. And I'm from Michigan, we got beautiful lakes and trees and, lots of trees. But this state is first time here. And we really wanted to come up for this event. And then I said to Andrea, yeah, we can check one off the bucket list too, touching all the 50 together, we're at like 46, so we're doing well. So it was important to get here, but we've had a fantastic week in your great state, because it's very lovely.
It's a great place to
I'm tired of lobster, but I will tell you that it's good. I'm just a little tired of it. We had a 2-pounder before we got here for lunch.
Well, it is a great place to have a summer home, so.
There you go.
You're always welcome. So
We get him ranked up, he can get me one.
there you go. We'll be neighbors. We'll live next door to each other. Okay, so for somebody who isn't maybe quite yet convinced that they should become coin collectors, is there any advice as to?
You know, it's probably the most honest thing I can say. I think, I'm trying to recall the name, but, you know, there's offense and defense. And I think gold and silver, I call it stacking bars, stacking bullion-related coins. You know, that's kind of your defense of what's going crazy in the world.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of things flying around. We don't know what the future's gonna hold. We don't know what our currency system's gonna be. We don't know anything about for sure what the Great Reset is going to be or not going to be. But I'll tell you what, it's gonna be something.
Yeah.
And one thing that survived all of them in the history of man is gold and silver. So always play your defense. Your offense is these collectible coins, though they can go up and down. Miles doesn't give out investment advice. I always tell people, buy what you like.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to have my name on it. It can have somebody else's name. It can be, it could be a beautiful butterfly. But buy what you like on the numismatic side. But there is an offensive and defensive play there. You get a little bit more, the gold and silver is just that. It's the defense. It's that security blanket. It's over here. It's that asset that if something changes, you're in good shape. It's instead of having paper currency completely.
Yeah.
And then the coins, stack and sell is probably one of the greatest inventions I've seen for any coin company in the history that it's been in the business. It's the only coin company, 7K Metals, that I've ever seen that set up a two-way street of something that you can buy and resell, and they make it available to you in a marketplace. It's never been done before. Kind of tells you who the people are behind the scenes. That's very telling. You know, a lot of coin companies, you call us, we'll tell you what we'll pay. But when they offer a buy and sell marketplace, it's a whole different plan. And it's a safety net for you.
It's brilliant. And, your work, I'm looking at the time, and we're going.
It says 0.
I know. Are we already out?
You get extra innings.
Clearly your work, you're building a legacy. There is I just want to ask him a couple more things. First of all, can you talk a little bit about what's happening what happened at the Mint in Liechtenstein as far as the upgrades?
I don't know about their equipment.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Pretend I didn't ask.
But I will tell you that. I will tell you this. I shouldn't say I don't know their equipment. I know things that have been the works about always improving their equipment to handle what's called velocity in a business growth, because I've got several different things that I work on with them also. But they don't want to have to play catch up. They want to be able to fulfill. That's how any business grows. That's how any business manages more customers.
And from what I understand, was 7K kind of the inspiration about them putting in that investment?
One of their biggest. And I introduced both those groups together several years ago after I'd met 7K, because I thought that 7K needed products that they needed the best products. And CIT Mint is capable with their manufacturing to make the best products on the planet for numismatic coins. It's no different than when we used to talk about BMW, Mercedes, Saab, and Volvo. Remember when they used to talk about a Volvo car? It was made like a tank.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they in the 80s and the 70s, they were it. And CIT is a combination of Volvo, Mercedes, and Neiman Marcus. And when I mean by Neiman Marcus, more of it glistens, not necessarily because it's overpriced or too expensive, but it is the epitome of quality. That helps.
Yes.
Maybe we'll use Nordstrom's is better,
Love it.
Good service.
So, as we come to a close,
That's all the questions you had for me, or did I kind of fill in too many
you
blanks?
filled in a lot.
Jeez, I talk too much.
Either that or I need to find not quit my day job. So obviously the legacy that you are leaving is not that you're leaving, but that you created.
Start up the truck, Andrea. They've had enough of us.
What's so amazing, and I really want you to know this, is not only is it your legacy, but you're allowing all of us to take part in that and to pass it on for our generations, for our children and our families. And you have no idea how.
Yeah, I think Andrea and I both learned a little bit more about, we did this initially. I wanted to do it because it was fun. I wanted to do it because I really wanted to see the people that started 7K, I wanted them to be highly successful. And that's from the bottom of my heart too. I left NGC almost a year ago, and I really like what I'm doing now, but it's more on a quest than anything else. And then of course, when they did something for the foundation and tied it to, coins that I designed that sell, it's like, oh, this is a win-win. And at this point in my life, Andrew and I were talking about something we saw on the roadside today. It was a secondhand store, and it had a bunch of strollers on this side of the street. And then across the parking lot, they had a bunch of walkers. And we had to circle back because she had to take a picture of this because it was, life beginning, life later, okay? And I said, we have an expiration date, and we have to really realize that. I probably, I grasped that on after 50 more so. We have an expiration date, so it's like, why not have a lot of fun along the rest of the way?
Yeah.
Why be angst and upset and doing things you have to do? Let's do things you want to do. I mean, to me, it's like, it's the 4th grade over again. Let's go on recess.
Well, I just turned 50, and I'm planning to live to 120, so I have 70 more years of coin collecting.
And see, my goal's been 100. I didn't know I had to extend it beyond that.
You might not have a choice with what's
Exactly.
happening. So you talked about, pushing through. You heard no. I'm sure you had a lot of doors closed.
I look back on it. I don't remember those. And I'm not trying to say I didn't have doors closed, because we all do on different things. I don't remember. You could ask Andrea. She'd know the history better than me complaining about something, though she says I don't complain much. I don't remember the rejections. I really don't. I've had so many things that work great, and it's most of the time. I was telling this to somebody, what's been your biggest success about doing more business? I said, I've always been the guy that showed up and says, how can I make you more money today?
Yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that makes you easy to listen to me, doesn't it? So I don't have a long list of, I couldn't get the NFL to do that with me. All right, I don't like the NFL anymore anyway. Okay, so that's what I turned it into.
Right.
Or, I've done some great projects with some fun organizations, but I don't have that many rejections to be too worried about.
Amazing.
I really don't.
Amazing. And, I know everybody's sitting here listening, and to the parallel from what your journey of doing what you're doing and our journey of, building our 7K business, there's so many similarities. And I would agree, when you start going and moving, you don't remember the rejections. And that's what builds that strength to be able to keep going. Last words of advice, as we're all here, pursuing and trying to help as many people as we can on our journey. If you could give us any advice on reaching our goals, what would it be?
Surround yourself with winners.
Yes.
That's, positive people. Honestly, on a Saturday afternoon, first thought, you can't hang around people that drag you down. You got to be around people, and I know there's some faces in here that I've seen multiple times where it's never been something I wanted from them, but it was something I wanted to give to them. And you got to be around like-minded people like that, because they've been that way to me. So surround yourself with winners. There's a lot of people that I've tried to help that I needed to let go.
Yes.
So you got to shuck the people that are dragging you down. Doesn't mean you can't be kind to some people that are losers. Excuse the term. Excuse the term. But that's,
They exist.
they drag you down.
That's right. Well, I know I'm speaking on behalf of everybody by saying thank you for taking the time to come to Maine. I mean, come all the way here and to share your
Through rain,
brilliance.
sleet, or snow, the Standishes will go.
So let's give it up for Miles.